Hey, hello everyone. This is Harold, and in this video I'm going to talk about my research on bird diversity in the cloud forest of Costa Rica. I've been there in the beginning in March, actually March and April of 2021 for my bachelor thesis. And in this video I'm going to show you a presentation. I'm going to explain what I did, why I did it, and first a little bit about my background. I've been working as a mechanic since I was 17, and in 2016 I decided to quit my job and start studying full-time again, because I've always loved nature, the tropics, wildlife. I decided to study international forest and nature management, and I specialized myself in the tropics, in tropical forestry actually. So during this study, I became interested in bird watching. There was a guy in my class who was really a bird fanatic, carrying his binoculars 24 hours a day almost. And I've been interested in birds for quite a while, since I was a teenager. But when I saw a nice bird, I took a picture, but never. I was never really interested in identifying the bird or. But this changed during my study. During my study, I bought a good pair of binoculars and discovered some interesting websites on the internet to do some for bird identification, like eBird and the Dutch counterpart called waarneming. There's a lot of information nowadays on birds, and I learned a lot. And during the first part of my specialization, I did a small research on birds in Portugal. This wasn't really serious, but I had the first feeling of doing some research on birds, and I really liked it. And so when I had to do my thesis, I decided to expand my research knowledge about birds, and study bird diversity between different forest succession stages in the cloud forest of Costa Rica. That's a little bit about my background and why I studied bird diversity in Costa Rica. So I'm going to start with my presentation. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is it. So I'm going to presentation mode. So let's start. I studied bird diversity in the montane cloud forest, Costa Rica. Almost all the pictures in this presentation are my own. Some of them don't, but I put the name of the photographer with the picture. So I did my study. I conducted my study in Cloudbridge Nature Reserve. It's the welcome sign as you enter the reserve. And I'm going to talk about the background of this study, then over to the problem description and my research questions. I'm going to explain the methodology, then of course the results, and after that I'm going to end with a conclusion and recommendations. And I'm going to show you, of course, some nice pictures about some other things I saw over there and other things I did, and a little bit about my time over there. I've been there for almost 2 months. So Costa Rica, Central American country, between Panama and Nicaragua, and there's a mountain ridge going from the northwest until the southeast of the country. It's divided in some different cordilleras, as they call it. In the north you have the Cordillera de Guanacaste, You have around the capital of San Jose, the Cordillera Central. And then in the southwestern part, as you enter close to the border of Panama, you have the Cordillera de Talamanca. And this is actually where where Cloudbridge is situated. This is also where you have the highest peak of Costa Rica, Cerro Chiripo. It's actually I think it's over here. Yeah, here, Mount Chiripo. This is San Isidro de General, and this is a small town called Rivas. This is where Cloudbridge Nature Reserve is situated. So Costa Rica is very progressive nowadays in forest restoration and forest reforestation. Actually, in the early 1940s and 50s, they had a lot of deforestation going on because of development, and they used the wood for development, furniture, for building, and for export as well. And they also had a lot of deforestation for agricultural development. But here's a picture where you can see the different forest cover loss. As I've said, since the 1940s, they had a lot of deforestation going on. But since the 1980s, they changed their forest. They changed the way they manage their forest, and since then they increased their forest, actually by 2005 up to 50%. And not a lot of tropical countries can say they did the same. So they're actually very progressive in that reforestation and forest restoration. And Cloudbridge Nature Reserve is one of the private nature reserve that is very active in reforestation and forest restoration. So as you can see, it's situated here. It's actually made of two parts: the southern part and the northern part. Altogether, it's almost just over 280 hectares. So not that big, but still quite some land. The southern part is actually the most visited. And like I said, it's almost all cloud forests. It's between 800 up to 1,500 or even 1,800 meters above sea level. And it's absolutely magnificent over there. It's the picture from one of the trails overlooking the northern part of the reserve. And so I divided I only studied the southern part of the reserve. The northern part was a little bit too far away and not really accessible. So I divided the forest into different forest succession stages. Here in red, you can see the human inhabitation. This bigger part is the entrance of the reserve, where you have the welcome center, and they have some accommodation for students and volunteers and researchers, and and here in the middle you have a small red area. It's only a small cabin where you can rent this and stay as a tourist. But in the sandish color, the lighter color, are all planted forests. The lighter green areas are the younger secondary forests, and I divided the secondary forest younger than 30 years and older than 30 years. So and the darker green are the older secondary forests, and the darkest green, which is almost everything is in the southern part of the reserve. This is all primary forest. And like I've said, this is all the succession stages. This is a picture of the planted forest. It's picture is taken around here. This is the younger secondary forest. Picture taken over here, I think. No, over here. Yep. And this is the older secondary forest. And this is the primary forest, which is way up here. This is also the highest part of the reserve. It also borders the Chirripó National Park. The red line here all the way in the south is one of the main trails going up to the entrance of the Chirripó National Park. So yeah, the problem description. As I said, the nature reserve it's almost well, actually it's all a cloud forest, and because of the altitude, it has an isolated position. Not all the mountains of Costa Rica are cloud forests. It's only at a certain altitude, like I said, between around 1,500 to 2,000 meters in altitude. And yeah, also human impact and climate variables make the cloud forest very, very vulnerable. Of course, there's a lot of reforestation and forest restoration going on, but still, Costa Rica has still a lot of deforestation going on as well because of shifting agriculture and development. And yeah, now because of the changes in climatic variables makes it also a vulnerable microclimate. And yeah, a lot of the bird species that live there are restricted range species. So that means that the bird has it has a restricted range. It cannot live in every habitat. And yeah, as well, the effects of the impact of human impact and climate variables on the cloud forest, on the bird diversity in cloud forest are not yet well understood. Actually, birds are a well-known study object. There's a lot of information already available about bird diversity, but not everything, and especially not in the cloud forests, because cloud forests only make up a small percentage of, I think, only 2.5% of the forests, of the tropical forests worldwide. So the research question, yeah, my research question: what effect does forest succession has on the bird species diversity at Cloudbridge Nature Reserve in Costa Rica? And yeah, I divided the main question into 3 sub-questions. Is there a difference in species richness and diversity between the different succession stages? And I also looked at dominant forest-depending species, if they have a preference for a certain landscape, and if this does affect bird diversity. And the third question, I've looked at the relation between vegetation structure and bird species diversity between the different succession stages. So yeah, the methodology, I used bird surveys to research the bird diversity. Cloudbridge actually has an active bird survey program already going on, but because of the birding stations were divided not really at a convenient way for my research. So I used some of the existing bird stations, but I also created some new bird stations as well. So I had 32 bird stations in total, divided over the 4 succession stages. So each succession stage had 8 bird stations. And I used the point count method. So that means that on a certain point you stop for a certain amount of time and count all the birds around this station. And yeah, I used the existing method they used at Cloudbridge the Cloudbridge bird survey program. So that means that at a certain point, you can see it here, the bird station, you had an imaginary circle around it with a radius of 25 meters. And of this imaginary circle, it creates a imaginary cylinder all the way up to the canopy. And within this imaginary cylinder, I would count bird activity for 15 minutes. So, and I excluded birds that flew over the bird canopy or just flew by, and they didn't use the forest. So those birds I excluded. And I did that by sight and sound. So I watched all the birds and tried to identify it. And I also used my telephone with a sound recording app on my telephone and recorded all the sounds. And then later on, I tried to identify all the birds that I recorded. Sometimes it was a really little hard. But the birds that I could identify, I included in the study. Yeah, and I also made use of a field assistant, looking at birds and writing down the field notes was a little difficult. So every day I had a field assistant with me who helped me with writing down all the species and information. So my vegetation methodology consisted of vegetation surveys. So I established 20 by 20 meter plots in each succession stage. And at the center line, at every 5 meter interval, I would measure the canopy cover with a canopy cover application on my phone. And in each subplot of 4 by 4 meters in the corners, I would measure the understory cover in percentage. And in the subplots of 1 by 1 meter in the corners, I would measure the herd cover, also in percentages. And in the 20 by 20 meter plot, I would measure all trees with a DBH over 10 centimeters. So my results, here are the species accumulation curves. In total, over the 8 weeks, I counted 111 species with just over 1,000 individuals. And here you can see that I counted the most species in the younger secondary forest, followed by primary, followed by secondary. No, sorry. So followed by planted forest, then primary forest, and the lowest amount I counted in older secondary forest. And species richness was highest in younger secondary forest, and this is also supported by many other studies on bird diversity. There's a lot of difference between forests worldwide, of course, but a substantial amount of bird studies had the same result with highest bird diversity in younger secondary forest. And the feeding yields, there were no granivores, so that was really surprising to me. I had a lot of nectarivores, hummingbirds, of course, but no granivores. And as this bar chart shows, insectivores, the omnivores, and the frugivores were also present. And there's some of the bird species were actually threatened, like the resplendent quetzal and the reddy pigeon. And actually the golden-winged warbler was one of the species that's actually vulnerable according to the red list of the IUCN. So some of the species didn't have any overlap, so they only were present in a specific forest succession stage. And yeah, I counted that planted forest had the most endemics. And here's some results about species diversity. I used the Shannon index to show bird diversity. As you can see, Shannon index is highest in younger secondary, followed by, I have to watch it, followed by older secondary, then primary forest. And yeah, planted forest had by far the lowest species diversity. Yeah, so these are the results of forest structure. Planted forests also had the lowest Shannon index in forest structure, followed by younger secondary. I also looked at forest depending species, and if this had an effect on bird diversity. And so I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the 7 most forest-depending bird species. This is the common bush tanager, as we call it in Europe, or the common chlorospingus, as it is known in America, in the Costa Rica as well, but we call it the common bush tanager. Followed by the slate-throated whitestart. The Swainson's thrush, black-capped vireo, elegant euphonia, yellowish flycatcher, and the silver-throated tanager. And the slate-throated whitestart was the only species that was highly forest-dependent. The other species were medium forest-dependent. So I used the chi-square test to see if it had a significant effect on bird diversity. So as you can see, the common bush tanager had the highest significant effect, because p-value is below 0.005, and elegant euphonia also had a significant effect, but less obvious than the common bush tanager. It's still below 0.005, but all the other species are above. P-value is above 0.005. Yeah, and here's the relation between forest structure and bird diversity seen in average canopy cover and the Shannon index. So here, as you can see, from planted forest to younger secondary forest, there seems to be an effect also onto older secondary, but then to primary forest, the effect is gone. Also looking at basal area and Shannon index, there seems to be an effect, but yeah, there's no clear evidence. Yeah, between the relation between forest structure and bird diversity. So conclusion, there seems to be an effect of forest diversity in diversity, but there's no clear evidence between all the forest succession stages. There are certain species that are more dominant, like the common bush tanager and the slate-throated whitestart. Yeah, the structural complexity could be a reason of difference between diversity. My recommendations, of course, there's always need for more research, because my field research was only 8 weeks, so that's a little short. It's always the best is always to do research all year round, but yeah, that's not always possible. Yeah, my recommendation is that secondary forest is very important for bird diversity. This is also shown in other studies. Yeah, my other recommendation is to improve the forest structure around bird station PL4. This is an area which you know, they did some testing with planting forests or planting trees close to each other, but this resulted in a forest structure that had almost no understory vegetation. So yeah, bird diversity was really low over there. So my recommendation is to improve this area. This is actually around here on the Montaña Trail. This looks like this, as I've said. Understory vegetation is pretty much absent. And this is what planted forest looks like at the bottom of the trail. So yeah, here forest understory and herb cover was a lot higher, and it also had a higher bird diversity. And of course, improve the vegetation methods. My vegetation survey was pretty limited. That was also due to the you know, the amount of time I spent on my research wasn't really long, only 8 weeks. And yeah, I did the birds of the vegetation surveys in only 1 week, so that was a little bit limited. So yeah, that was my study, and let's go to the you know, I also did some other things over there. Looked at some other wildlife, of course. The area is so rich in diversity, not only birds but also other animals and also plants. On the left there's a Sicilian. It's I think it's is it an amphibian? I think it's an amphibian without legs. It's a very strange creature. It looks like a worm, but you know, it's actually an amphibian. Yeah, this I think it's some kind of praying mantis species, was inside my room and kept me awake. That was pretty funny. There's a weasel and a porcupine, of course, I saw. Really nice. Of course, the coatis, some very interesting species of spider that occupied my room in the night. So that was really, it was really funny. Yeah, and one of the last nights I spent in Cloudbridge Reserve, another volunteer or researcher put up a you know, a blank sheet with a light on it to attract moths, and it was really interesting. Beautiful species of moths came on this sheet, and yeah, they actually took a lot of pictures. And they showed it to a moth expert in Costa Rica, and he was really surprised by the species. Actually, some of them were unknown to him, or he couldn't identify it. So maybe there's a new species to be discovered. Yeah, and of course a lot of birds. Spotted wood quail, golden hooded tanager, red-fronted or red-hooded barbet. And this is, I can't remember the name. I think it's a red-tailed hawk. And yeah, of course, look at this, the resplendent quetzals. These pictures were taken just in front of the research center. There's a dead tree with a nice hollow in it where they, you know, they have a, I don't think they have a nest, but maybe in the past they had a nest. So it was absolutely amazing to see them from this close. And trogon. This is a colored trogon, I think. Absolutely amazing, the birds over there. I think in total, not including my research only, but I think I saw a total of 140 species over there around in the Cloudbridge Nature Reserve. So that's absolutely incredible in just 8 weeks, and only at you know, a I spend time on only in the southern part, so that's around 140, 150 hectares. So that's incredible. And yeah, I think in total around the reserve they have around 300 recorded bird species. Yeah, also did some other things. There were a lot of volunteers and researchers as well. Students, made a lot of friends over there. Every Thursday night we had a potluck dinner, so we could cook something and share this with each other. And there was also room for some nice drinks during the weekends. And yeah, this is on the left was the Paula Pepsworth, scientific coordinator by the time. She helped me a lot with conducting my research. And these are some of my assistants that helped me throughout my vegetation and bird research. And yeah, because my room was inside the research center, sometimes they closed the research center from the outside, and I was I was stuck inside, so I had to send a message inside the WhatsApp group of the reserve and ask if somebody could open the door again, because I was stuck. And it was pretty funny. It happened a couple of times. And yeah, I think that's it. To stop sharing. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to tell about my research. If you are interested in my research, and if you're interested in all my results and how I did how I conducted my full research, then consider buying the full document. It's a total of 59 pages with all the data included. You can find the link below this video. And yeah, so thank you for watching. I hope you like my video about my study on bird diversity in the cloud forest of Costa Rica. And if you're interested in other videos about me, about bird watching, please subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you will be notified every time I upload a new video. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.